Fox and the right are furious about the lack of willingness of the mainstream media to finally address the biggest political news of the week, nay, all of history, perhaps. Donald Trump put out a statement saying the press refuses to even mention the major crime that took place. This in itself is a scandal. The fact that a story so big, so powerful, and so important for the future of our nation is getting zero coverage from mainstream, is being talked about all over the world. He's mad. Fox is mad. They're freaking out that this huge story isn't being talked about on the mainstream media. You can see this graphic they put up of primetime media coverage of the latest John Durham allegations. 0 minutes across the board. Now, of course, there's a sort of implicit lie by omission there that the mainstream media has covered it. The reason the graphic says primetime media coverage is so that they can ignore the fact that, for instance, Jake Tapper did a whole thing about these Durham things. You can see in that screenshot. They have been talking about it, but there might be a reason why they're not, and we're gonna get into it. But like I said, Fox has been all about this. And for many of you in the audience who might not watch a lot of Fox News, you might just come across some of these headlines. The last day or two has just been one headline like this after the other. Jesse Waters saying, I would like to see Hillary treated the way OJ is, which that seems like a crazy thing to say. Jeanine Pirro at least is kind of honest when she says it all comes back to Hillary Clinton. Well, yes, in the end on Fox, it does all come back to Hillary Clinton. The front page of Fox News this morning says Dems cry foul on Durham probe after bending over backward to help Mueller investigate Trump. And you'll notice that in that headline, they're not even saying that the Durham stuff is true or significant. They're saying the Dems are saying it's not true, but come on, you guys were really mean to Trump. So even if this isn't true, don't you kind of have to play ball? How is that a way for a mainstream media news outlet to address a political scandal? But that's what they're doing. Anyway, many of you are probably wondering, but what is all this about? And we will get to it in just a little minute. But Waz, have you been following any of this? Fox absolutely losing their minds.
I don't know that anybody would be surprised that I try not to keep up with Fox because like I feel like I'm gonna get high blood pressure every single time I watch even a little bit of Fox News. But this is straight out of the classic Fox News playbook. Anything Clinton related, they dial the volume up to 10 every single time. It doesn't matter how important or how legitimate it might be. In the case of like the email server, people are just like, well, why are you using a private server for what is correspondence during your job as a civil servant? I think that's like a legitimate thing. Do I think Hillary Clinton was planning coups and all over the world on her server? No, I don't. But I think the concern is legitimate. But they go from something that's, kind of legitimate to like Vince Foster stuff and Durham probe and all of that. And then, that's where you lose your credibility with me, honestly.
Yeah, 100%. And look, let's not ignore the fact that they have a massive financial motive to be talking about certain people like Hillary Clinton. A lot of people made a lot of money criticizing her. By the way, she's done a lot of things that are totally worthy of criticism. When those things are relevant, we will criticize her for that. But you can't just chase like, oh, our audience likes when we talk about Clinton. Well, I guess we're just always gonna be talking about that. And that's what they're doing. Now, again, like if you're like Waz, you might not sit down and watch a lot of this. You might just sort of absorb it, I guess. That there's something about hacking, something about spying, something about Trump. I don't know what it is, but I know that Hillary Clinton's kind of shady. So I guess there's something. What if I were to tell you that in this case, no, there's really nothing. This is the refried beans of news. They just went through it another time. So I will try to explain what seems to be going on here. And bear in mind, you could watch all day on Fox today and not get even the little information I'm gonna give you in the next minute, because they're not discussing the content, supposedly the filings we're gonna discuss. It's all just aura stuff. There's something out there. This is why they've pivoted to why isn't the media covering it? Because they can talk for hours about the media not talking about it. And meanwhile, they're not really talking about it either. They're just talking about who is talking about it and who's not talking about it. So let's talk about it. When John Durham, the Trump-era special counsel investigating the inquiry into Russia's 2016 election interference, filed a pretrial motion last Friday night, he slipped in a few extra sentences that set off a furor among right-wing outlets about purported spying on former President Donald J. Trump. That is the impetus to all of this. Citing this filing, Fox News inaccurately declared that Mr. Durham had said he had evidence that Hillary Clinton's campaign had paid a technology company to infiltrate a White House server. The Washington Examiner then claimed that this all meant that there had been spying on Mr. Trump's White House. So if this seems familiar, we've already done this whole story. Trump talked about this for months and months at the beginning of his presidency, but it was about Obama, that Obama supposedly had wiretapped Trump Tower. This is that, except it's no longer about Obama because their audience has moved on. Now they've just made it about Clinton. But let me give you some more information. So for one other issue is that this isn't new. New York Times reported in October what Mr. Sussman had told the CIA that is now in those filings. The conservative media also skewed what the filing said. For example, Mr. Durham's filing never used the word infiltrate, but that has been everywhere in the coverage of it. It never claimed that Mr. Joffe's company, one of the guys discussed in his filing, was being paid by the Clinton campaign. So all of these stories about the Clinton campaign paying a company to infiltrate Trump Tower lacks the infiltration and the Clinton part of it. But Fox News doesn't care about that, and they have just raced ahead in this, and not just them. Like there's all these headlines from places like the Washington Examiner. Tulsi Gabbard has been on a tear tweeting about this. Again, none of it was accurate, but who's gonna let that stop them? Like who's gonna actually read the contents of the news articles about this? No, just it fits into what I wanna believe about the world, so I'm gonna go with it. By the way, the filing that all this is about never said that the White House data in question was from the Trump era. And in fact, it's not. The DNS logs in question came from Barack Obama's presidency. It wasn't even during Clinton. Like the whole thing, none of it is true, Woz. And it's just so frustrating to try to respond to this. How are you supposed to get through to people when they have so little care for what fundamentally is true about this story?
I mean, these are the people that peddled the new Black Panther Party. Like I can't really get bent up out of shape about Fox's mishandling of a news item. It's kind of, again, this is just what they do. We haven't seen this sort of stuff in a while because the Clintons are so out of the public eye. You don't get this kind of phony stuff as much as we used to see all the time. Specifically, man, in 2015 and 16 during that campaign, they were just, the Hillary beat was as hot as it's ever been, which obviously she's running for president. They're gonna do that. But the last few years, they just haven't been able, they haven't had a boogeyman to rally around, right? Like they haven't had a Barack Obama, they haven't had a Hillary Clinton. So they gotta kind of come up with stuff like they're teaching white kids about slavery in school and that's gonna ruin them. They've got this, they're grasping at straws. And again, this is the latest example of that. This is such a reach, even for the Fox News outfit.
I think you're totally right there about the grasping. They want Obama back. They want the glory days of Clinton.
Oh God, like they would kill for that.
Biden just isn't the same thing. Like they try to spice it up with stuff about crack pipes or whatever, or him losing his mind, but clearly it isn't working as well. So this is an election year. So they need something to talk about. They're gonna stay with all the CRT stuff that Woz was alluding to, but they want Clinton to be in the news because they think it will fire up their base. That's why every week they do another day's coverage of Clinton might be running in 2024. There's no information to lead to that. And by the way, all of this might seem like, hey, you're doing a bunch of defending of Clinton. What, do you think that she's great? No, she's terrible. And she is corrupt in all of the ways that virtually all of them are corrupt. But we can criticize the bad, awful, corrupt things about them that are rooted in reality and facts, and not just conveniently for our own like analytics reasons, invent out of whole cloth conspiracies that have the end result of further like creating an ever widening gap of people's need to have the stories that we discuss be founded in truth. I want us to be able to talk about the real world. I want there to be an attachment from the news to the world. And that, like, this is not it. This gets people fired up. It plays into the tribal, partisan world that we live in, but it's not true. It's just not true. Anyway.
Hey, at least we got some really fresh merch the past weekend. John, did you see that? Hillary Clinton dropped the But Her Emails merch.
No.
Swanky stuff. I can't wait to get my hands on that. Yes, that happened. That happened.
I would love to see you come on the show with a But Her Emails hat. I don't think it's gonna happen. Maybe we'll see.
For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.